Great. So welcome everyone to the second episode of our webinar series entitled Let's Get Healthy in 2023. This series is sponsored by the Lifestyle Medicine Program at the Mass General Cancer Center. We are so excited for today's topic, which is entitled Get Fit, Have Fun, and Be Inspired with Exercise. We have an amazing panel lined up for you today, and I will note that this is being recorded so you can go back and watch this later. In addition, we will have time for questions at the end, and there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen where you can pose questions for our amazing panelists. I'm going to give them a brief intro now. First, Loren Winters is an adult oncology nurse practitioner who specializes in the care of persons with a diagnosis of breast cancer. She is also Assistant Director of Breast Cancer Survivorship at the Mass General Cancer Center in Waltham and Assistant Director of the Mass General Cancer Center Lifestyle Medicine Program. She is a certified lifestyle medicine practitioner as well as a health and well-being coach, a yoga instructor, and an Ayurvedic health counselor. Lynn Gray-Meltzer is a physical therapist who specializes in orthopedics, pelvic health, and oncology, and she's very interested in providing care for lymphedema as well. She is so excited to share her knowledge about the role of exercise in physical therapy with an emphasis on the importance of strength training. Baglini is an adult oncology nurse practitioner who specializes in care of patients with gastrointestinal cancers. He has many interests, including an interest in the role of exercise-based interventions for individuals undergoing therapy for cancer. Finally, we are also joined by Julie Ann Kelly, who is co-founder for Haymakers for Hope. She herself is a survivor of Hodgkin's lymphoma and a boxing champion. She has informed me that she won the New York City Golden Gloves boxing competition 2 times. So we look forward to learning from her as well. On that note, awesome. I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful panelists to get us started.
Thanks so much, Amy. And we are all so happy to be here talking about a topic that we all love, which is exercise and physical activity. Allie, would you please share slide number 3? Thank you. We don't have a lot of slides, just a little to kind of keep us organized. I can see the whole screen, Allie. I don't know if you can make it so perfect. So next one. All right, great. So just quickly, we'll be talking today about exercise benefits and guidelines, just briefly, so we can get right into our panelists. And we'll start with Lynn, our wonderful physical therapist, and she'll be talking about how to improve function by adding strength and resistance exercises and how you can do that at home. We'll then move on to talking with, in a real live interview with Julie, and she'll be talking about fitness and fun with boxing. So really excited to hear about that, which is an exercise that maybe many of us wouldn't think of right off the bat. So that'll be fun. And then finally, we'll be inspired by Christian Baglini's interview with a wonderful patient who is sharing his story about training for the Boston Marathon and why he's inspired to do that for the very first time. So very excited. Can go to the next slide. So just to begin with the exercise benefits, next slide, Allie. I love this because as much as we know and are learning about the benefits of exercise, it's not always easy. So I love this Joan Rivers of quotes. The first time I see a jogger smiling, I'll consider it. And sometimes, we might feel that way about getting started with exercise. So just a little humor to kick us off. Next slide. And so again, there are many benefits in the literature, and of course that we feel when we exercise. I think very importantly in the realm of folks dealing with a cancer history is that exercise can help improve energy that's lost to treatment and reduce fatigue. That more global aspect of feeling tired all the time can boost mood, reduce anxiety, depression, improve our sleep, and certainly improve function, which Lynn will be talking about, strength and flexibility. Overall quality of life is better with regular exercise or physical activity. And it's also an opportunity to do those kinds of activities with other people. So offers a nice way to get that social connection in as well with a walking buddy or exercise buddy. Supports the skeleton, the muscle system, our immune system. It helps maintain a healthy weight along with healthy foods and eating pattern, improve appetite if that's low. And then there are certain cancers where exercise plays an important role in preventing cancer recurrence. Next slide, please. Christian, would you like to go through this slide?
Yeah, sure. So some of this is also touching upon what what Loren was saying. But I wanted to sort of talk a little about the expected changes and unexpected changes with aging. And so, when you think about that, there's a number of them, but the ones that really tend to overlap, I think the most that we see are, this bone loss, depression, anxiety that Loren just talked about, as well as the risk for falls. And so, these can all be tied to sort of that loss of muscle mass, the loss of function in patients who maybe aren't exercising as much as they'd like or are able. And there are also, within that, some misconceptions about aging. And so, the most common thing that we sometimes hear is people tend to stop exercising as much simply because they feel like it's a part of their natural aging. And so there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, right? Genetics is one piece. And really good health is more than just absence of disease. So it really means maintaining your function, good quality of life, keeping the ability to do the things that are important to you. So, my key takeaway from that is that while your body will undergo changes, you really shouldn't expect or accept total loss of function as you age, and that physical activity is just one way to help promote that healthy aging process and continue to do the things that really matter the most to you.
Thank you so much, Christian. Next slide, Allie. Thank you. So we might wonder, what are the guidelines for cancer survivors around exercise? This is put out by the American Cancer Society Nutrition and Physical Activity Guidelines. And we really start with the basics. So just trying to avoid inactivity that's mainly not sitting. So keeping active, it could be around the house, it could be around the yard, but just trying to be upright rather than lying down as much as possible, as much as you're able. And then, of course, ultimately to return to those everyday activities as soon as possible. The next piece is to be more active regularly. So that's, again, that getting up and moving throughout the day, but being really conscious about that as often as you can. And that if you haven't been, then you start slow. Then you start slow and low in terms of amount of time of activity, and you build that up over time as you're able. And so that may feel like a slow slope, but that's okay. The idea is just a little progress every day can make all the difference. And then stretching, stretching exercises 2 days a week along with that physical activity or exercise activity that you've chosen helps keep the body limber and flexible and the joints feeling good. Ultimately, when we get to sort of what should a regular exercise program look like? The goal is to build up to 150 minutes minimum, 300 minutes. Doesn't necessarily mean to be maximum, but that's really like the nice place to be, the best place to be based on the evidence that we have. A week of this moderate level intensity exercise. When we talk about moderate level intensity, we mean the type of exercise that gets your heart rate up above your sort of normal baseline heart rate. Maybe you might break a little sweat or feel a little bit warmer, that you can talk but not sing while you're doing that activity. That's pretty much a good gauge for moderate level intensity type exercise. More vigorous exercise, you don't need to do as much. So if you feel up and you're able to do more vigorous type exercise, then health benefits come with about 75 minutes of that type of exercise a week. But again, you want to try to exercise at least a couple of minutes a day if that's where you're starting. It's totally fine shooting for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, for example, and you can do that several times a day, several times a week, again, depending on what you're doing and how you're feeling. And then lastly, and this is really a great segue into talking with Lynn next, it's important to include strength and resistance training type exercise at least 2 days a week. So if that's not something that's been part of your repertoire before, then it's nice to know how to get started and do it in a safe way. And you can do a lot of things in the comfort of your own home that can make a real difference in your function and your fitness. So that will be where we go next. Next slide, please. The bottom line, and this is again based on our guidelines and the research that we have to date, for most people with a history of cancer, exercise is safe and helpful before, during, and after cancer treatment. Next slide. So again, without further ado, we're going to get right into Lynn's presentation, Improve Function with Strength and Resistance Exercise. Lynn, I will let you take it away.
Everyone. So in a little bit, we'll be hearing from some very inspiring athletes, but sometimes if you haven't been exercising in a long time or have never been an exerciser, it can feel really overwhelming to know where to get started. Joining a gym or starting a structured exercise program outside the home just might be really intimidating and feel like a really big barrier. So, eventually doing something like a couch to 5K could be a great goal, but today I'm going to talk to you about just couch to kitchen, simple things that you could do in your home. This is not meant to be a comprehensive program. This is more to give you a little spark, some inspiration for how you could just fit more movement into your everyday life. So first, I just want to start by talking about some safety considerations, and then we'll watch some videos of me exercising in my own home. So safety first. This should not be a no pain, no gain situation. So you don't want to be pushing through pain. You want to keep exercises very tolerable and just in your available range of motion if you have any joint stiffness. These exercises I'm going to show you today aren't meant to treat lymphedema, but as a PT who sees patients with lymphedema, oftentimes we are carefully progressing resistance strengthening exercises as part of a comprehensive program. So if you have lymphedema, you definitely want to be working with the lifestyle medicine program, consider a referral to PT, but here's just some general guidelines. So resistant exercises should start at the lightest weight, and you're going to err on the side of that very light weight or resistance or intensity and higher reps versus going with a heavier weight and low reps that you might think of if you have seen or done any more intense gym exercise in the past. Always slow and progressive and increasing by very small increments. For those progressions, definitely seek guidance from your health professional. And then again, just very general guidelines suggesting to start with 2 sets of 10 repetitions of about 6 to 8 strengthening exercises for the major upper and lower body muscle groups with a minimum of 2 sessions per week. If you have been diagnosed with lymphedema and have a compression garment you wear, you definitely would want to keep that on for exercise because that can help enhance the effects of the muscle pump action to move fluid. And research has shown that, especially for exercise progression, it is best to be doing it with supervision in a facility or counseling from a health professional. So again, this is sort of just like a spark to get you started. So when to seek help. If you have other health conditions going on that might require a physician clearance to start an exercise program, any pain during exercise that doesn't go away if you just work through a little less range or stop and rest briefly, especially any persistent pain that continues after exercise, even once you've stopped, and any increase or change in edema, which is just the same thing as swelling. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. So the first video we'll watch is a basic beginner version of something called a bridge. My patients oftentimes call it the butt lift exercise. This is something that you could do right in your living room or even in bed if you're really fatigued and still spending a lot of time in bed. Oftentimes I tell patients that this could be your commercial exercise. So maybe you're watching a TV show and you pick a couple commercials that come on, and you get down on the ground and you do 2 sets of 10. Or if you have fatigue sooner, sometimes it's as simple as starting with just 2 sets of 5. Start with whatever feels right for your body. So you can go ahead and play the video. Allie, I can't hear the video. Don't know if there's something on your end that you need to change for the volume potentially.
Yeah, 1 second.
And if there's any sound problem that can't be fixed, I'm happy to play it and narrate it.
Say we figured it out the other day.
Yeah, Lauren, that setting might be just saved on your account. Do you want to maybe just share your screen?
Oh,
for
is
the
it?
videos?
Oh, okay. Let me see. Yeah, I can do that. Hang on. Second. I just want to make sure I
In the
have
meantime,
as big of a screen as I can. Yeah.
I'll just mention a few other strategies that help my patients get started and keep going with exercise. So it's important to make it routine. A lot of my patients, especially if, again, they're having trouble getting started with exercise, they might wait until they feel like doing it, and that usually doesn't work. So literally putting it on your calendar schedule and making it part of your daily routine is really important. And I'll talk in some later videos about some ideas for fitting it into your daily routine.
Shall we try it again? We'll try it again. Can you hear it now?
I cannot.
No, I can hear it. Okay. We'll try one more thing. Don't worry. We had it working, Allie. All right, Lynn, you may, for this one, you may need to narrate.
Sure, go for it.
I hope that's okay.
Yeah, if you want.
Don't worry, Christian, we'll figure it out before we get to yours. I'm just going to play it though, so we can at least get it going.
So I'm just saying here that I'm Lynn, I'm going to show you some simple exercises. So the first one that we're going to do is a beginner bridge. Oftentimes with a bridge, the knees tend to fall apart or knock together. So it's nice to have a block or a thick towel roll or a folded pillow to put between your thighs. It also gets a little more inner thigh engagement. Sometimes getting down onto the ground is hard on people. So I'm just showing that you could turn to your side and roll onto your back instead of doing a reverse sit-up. So I'm just on my back, feet hip distance apart, and I put that block or towel roll between my legs. Hands are pressed into the ground. I'm just going to warm up the spine a little bit. My chest is open, hands pressing into the ground. So first thing you're going to see me do is rock my pelvis back and forth. Sometimes this is called a pelvic tilt. So I'm buttoning and zipping in my lower belly, almost like I'm trying to put on some tight jeans, flattening my back into the ground, and then releasing that tension and getting a small arch under my low back. Then I'm going to take a deep breath in, exhale, dig my heels into the ground, squeeze the buttocks muscles, and press my hips up towards the ceiling. I'm not going too high. I don't want it to feel like a big back arch that can actually strain your back. And then I'm going to roll back down one vertebra at a time. So in general, with strengthening exercises, you're going to exhale on the effort or the exertion. So think ease. You're going to exhale on the effort of the exercise. So I'm inhaling to get ready. Long, slow breath out. You could pretend to blow through a straw. As I dig through my heels, squeeze my butt to lift, and then gradually roll down one vertebra at a time. Okay, so go ahead and pause it. In the beginning of the next video, I just mentioned wearing a sleeve if you have lymphedema. But again, remember, if you haven't been exercising and you have lymphedema concerns, before jumping into exercise, I really would recommend make sure you're working with your lifestyle medicine providers and consider a PT consult. Okay, you can go ahead and play it.
Okay, I think I might have the audio this time, so let's see.
Go ahead and try it out.
Upper body exercises together.
Yes, I can hear it.
First of all, remember that if you have lymphedema and you do wear a sleeve to help control lymphedema in a limb such as your arm, you want to have it on for exercise. I don't have lymphedema, so I'm not going to be wearing that. So the first thing we're going to do is some bicep curls and some arm raises. I have some 3-pound dumbbells here. If you haven't been doing upper body exercises, I would recommend starting either with no weight or just a 1 pound weight, which could also be something like a soup can if you don't have weights yet. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're sitting in a good posture. So you have a nice firm chair. I don't have too much arch in my low back, and I'm not slumped. I'm just right in between. My chest is open, my shoulder blades are rolled down and back, but without arching my back when I do it. So my core is a little tight, so it's really just my shoulder blades sliding down and back. Like I'm imagining there's a pencil on my spine, and I'm just trying to slide my shoulder blades down and together to grab it. Okay. Keeping my shoulders there, keeping my abs tight. Elbows are at my side, palms up with the weights in my hands. I'm gonna curl up to my shoulders and down. Curl up to the shoulders and down. I want you to notice the first time I accidentally bent my wrist. If you want to keep a nice neutral, long wrist, so not bending or extending. So it can be difficult to make time for exercise.
You want to pause here and
The only thing I wanted to add is that obviously I'm just demonstrating a couple reps of each exercise so you get a sense of it. I get the form. Like I said in the initial slide, very general guidelines are to start with about 2 sets of 10, but obviously stop sooner if there's any pain or excessive fatigue, and then seek guidance for progression beyond that. And you can go ahead and just go right through the next couple.
okay.
I'm here in my kitchen to show you how you can make time for some simple upper and lower body exercises as you go about your daily life. So I'm preparing some sweet potatoes here. They're about 1 pound each. Before I chop them up to cook them, I'm going to do some arm raises with them. So for the first one, I'm going to hold those sweet potatoes with my thumbs up, shoulder blades rolled down and back, knees a little bent, belly button scooped in, and I'm going to raise them up to shoulder height and slowly lower them back down, and raise them up to shoulder height and lower them back down. Breathing in to get ready, and out with the effort of lifting. And then I'm going to turn to the side. So that first time I was making sort of a V shape with my arms, and now I'm going to come directly to the side with my palms down. Knees are a little bent, belly button's a little zipped in, shoulder blades are down, and I'm going to breathe out and come up to the side. Another great everyday object I could use are some light cans that weigh about 1 pound. This large one would be a little heavy to get started. This is closer to 2 pounds. I also have some kids' water bottles here. You could fill them with different amounts of water to change the weight. Again, you'd want to start on the light side about with 1 pound. Okay. Now, if you have a light exercise band, this is the lightest one, oftentimes it's yellow. You could leave this in a very visible spot, and while I'm waiting for something to beep in the microwave there, or waiting for some water to finish boiling, I'm going to do some shoulder rotation exercises. So I'm going to hold this band with my palms up, wrap it once on each hand to make it a little easier to grip. Knees are a little bent, belly button zipped in, shoulder blades rolled down and back, elbows at my sides. I'm going to open my chest, squeeze those shoulder blades back, and pull apart. Hold for a second, and slowly rotate back in. Let's try it again. Inhale to get ready. Exhale, shoulder blades squeezing back like I'm trying to grab a pencil on my spine. Pull apart and slowly release. Now let's review some lower body exercises that can be done right here in the kitchen. So the first one I'm going to do is a mini squat. I'm going to hold on to the counter for stability. Soften my knees. My legs are just about hip width distance apart. I'm going to button and zip in my lower belly a little bit and squat down like I'm sitting back in a chair, and exhale and come up. Great. Now staying right here at the counter. I'm going to get my heels right under my hip sockets and do some heel raises. Abs are tight, knees are straight. I'm going to exhale, raise all the way up on my tiptoes, and back down. Exhale up, and all the way back down. And then, keeping my fingertips on the counter, I'm going to do some side steps. I'm I'm going to step out and in, and out and in. I could also add a challenge by tying this light band around my ankles. So I'm just going to tie it in a tight loop here. I'm going to tie a bow so it's going to be a little easier to get off, and try that side step again. Knees are slightly bent, tailbones tucked, lower abs zipped in. I'm going to take a wide step to the side, stretching that band, and slow and controlled step in. Wide step to the side, slow and controlled step in. And you can go back the other way. Wide step to the side, slowly back in. Notice I'm not rocking my entire body. I'm not tick-tocking like the arm of a clock. I'm keeping my pelvis nice and level and really working from my muscles in the side of the hip. Taking a wide step and putting my legs back together. Great job. After I've done my upper and lower body
Ellie, I think
exercises,
time-wise, Lauren wasn't sure if we had time to show stretching, so I will defer to her. But yeah, bottom line is that, as you can see, there wasn't a lot of special equipment. I was just in everyday clothes. I apparently even like accidentally had on 2 different socks. So just wanted this to feel really accessible. So you feel like, you know, you too could get moving a little bit more on your home.
Lynn, may I ask 2 things just for our audience? One is regarding your exhale. You always seem to exhale on the effort. Is that true? Is that's important to do?
This is something that's sometimes like a point of confusion for patients. So sometimes in yoga classes with a movement or an arm lift, there's an inhale because it's like very energizing and uplifting. Or sometimes in the past, if people have done heavier weightlifting in the gym, they're taught the strategy of inhaling and holding their breath to like stiffen their trunk. So there can be a variety of reasons to breathe different ways. But the simplest, safest principle is that when you're exerting your body, if you inhale and hold your breath, it can be hard on the cardiovascular system. That downward movement of the breathing diaphragm when you inhale and hold your breath also puts a lot of pressure down on the intestines and pelvic floor. So if anybody's struggled with pelvic organ prolapse or stress urinary incontinence and things like that, exhaling when you exert yourself can help with that intra-abdominal pressure management. So it's just like the most like safest beginner way to start. But, you know, certainly you might work with different exercise professionals with like different specialties that might coach a little different. But I'd say for beginners, exhale with the effort or the exertion, just to keep it simple and safe for beginners.
Thanks, Lynn. I am definitely going to look at sweet potatoes in a whole nother way. But it's just so cool how many things you can do right in your kitchen. Really quite a lot. And then I would like to say also that we are going to be posting the exercise videos, including a stretching video that Lynn also made, to our lifestyle medicine website. So for anybody who is watching this webinar, you will be able to review those exercise videos again very soon, as we can get them up onto the website. So thank you so much, Lynn. That was excellent. Awesome. Awesome. So I guess I'm still in the driver's seat. Allie, is that true with the screen shares and stuff? I think I am, right? I'm just going to keep going if that's okay. So our next panelist is, I'm so excited to have Julie Ann Kelly here. We're going to be talking about fitness and fun with boxing. And Julie, I just want to show this page off of your website for Haymakers for Hope, because it just looks like such a fun crew. And of course, there you are. And you can't read this here, but there is a lot of information about your organization on the website. So folks can easily Google Haymakers for Hope to learn more. But this is a great opportunity for us right now to hear from you. And so I again welcome you and thank you so much for doing this today. I hoped if you wouldn't mind at all, just to briefly share your experience with cancer, certainly anything that you're comfortable sharing and how that might have led you to boxing.
Sure. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in September of 2001. I had graduated from college in this earlier in the spring, And I think of college graduation as kind of like your graduation to adulthood. You know, the training wheels kind of come off and you're a full-blown adult. And getting that news really, it really knocked the wind out of me. And I was very lucky. I went through treatment, chemo, radiation, and I got a clean bill of health in March of 2002. And since then, everything has been fine. And just post treatment, I found myself in a little bit of a depressed state and just kind of unsure. I was young and I didn't really know what to do or where I was going or what I was doing. And I had always grown up being an athlete, but that had kind of fallen to the wayside during college. And I just remember I was living in New York City and it was kismet. I just drove by a boxing gym one day on my bike. I was doing endurance events for Team in Training to raise money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And I walked in and it just completely changed my life.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Seems like you were led there somehow.
Yeah, I definitely think it just kind of called out to me because it's not a sport that, child of the 80s, girls didn't do contact sports back then. Possibly, maybe karate was really all that was offered to us, but it's not a sport that you think of as rough and tumble and not accessible to young women. And the gym and the sport couldn't have been more welcoming.
And what do you find so fun about it? For anyone who's never tried it, what's super fun about it? It seems kind of scary.
That was really my thought, was so intimidating. And I was nervous to walk into the gym and could not have been more opposite. Everyone was so kind and welcoming. I think what is so fun is there is so much to learn. And you're in the gym with a lot of like-minded people, and it is not a sport that you need to learn how to box. You don't ever have to be hit or hit someone. It's a buildable sport. You learn, it starts with footwork. And then once you get the footwork down, then you build up to learning your punches, and it's very, very technical. So there's this super strong mind-body connection. They call it the sweet science for a reason. For every action, there's a reaction. And it makes you think, and you're moving your body, and it's just a really, really fun sport because it's a sport where you have to always be a student. There is so much to learn.
Wow, that sounds like it's a lot of fun, and there's sort of a long progression that you could expect as you learn your skills and get better at them and practice and then learn new skills. And so it sounds like you almost could never get bored.
No, your coach wouldn't let you get bored.
So what would you say to someone who's, you kind of answered this already, but who might be interested but is feeling intimidated or has never tried it before? What would you say to them to help them sort of consider it? What sort of resources should they consider? And also, like what kind of encouraging words would you add?
Yeah. I already said it, but really don't be intimidated. Boxing it can be for fitness. A lot of people, like the boxing gyms really right now are geared a lot towards fitness. If it's something that you're interested in doing, especially here in Massachusetts, look online, look for local boxing gyms and just walk in there and talk to someone and just let them know that you're interested in it. They're very, very welcoming. They're great. Boxing gyms are a wonderful kind of tight-knit community. And there's ranges of all different skill levels, from somebody who's just trying to get fit, just learn the sport, all the way up to people who are competing. You just, make sure when you start, go at your own pace. Just go at your own pace. Do what you can do. You can always shadow box at home. You can start there. But I would reach out to a gym. There's so many wonderful gyms here in Massachusetts, in the city and outside of the city, that are very welcoming and would love to kind of get you on your boxing journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like that's the way you build community. Well, I'm very, very excited to hear about why you started Haymakers for Hope, and then please tell us about that organization.
Sure. Haymakers for Hope, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We put on amateur boxing events. Right now we are in 5 cities. We are launching Philadelphia in April. We do 2 events in Boston, May and October. Our October event is an all women's event. It's called Bells of the Brawl. We're also in Denver, DC, and New York City. It's all first-time amateur boxers. They train for 4 months and they fundraise. Haymakers for Hope, we support cancer research, awareness, survivorship, and care. My co-founder, Andrew Meyerson, and I launched it in 2011. We really just wanted to see, what we could do if we could put on a boxing event. A lot of our friends at the time were participating, myself included, in triathlons and marathons, and we were donating and we were doing them. And the idea was, nobody really went to. I would donate to my friends, but I didn't necessarily go to watch them run by me. That 30 seconds, I was donating because I was so proud of them. It's 26 miles it's an incredible physical feat. And Andrew and I were in a gym together, and we just fell in love with the sport, and we just thought that we would give it a shot. And we out of the gate raised about $185,000 for Dana-Farber.
Wow.
Yeah, we really grossly underestimated how much people wanted to see their friends get punched in the face. And it really just, it took on a life of its own, and to be able to introduce a sport that gave me so much, and it really gave me my life back, and ultimately allowed me to find my life's purpose, and all while being able to fundraise and to give back and to help others who have been affected by cancer. It's pretty amazing, and that's what we do. So we're very, very lucky to get the continued support from boxers and their supporters.
Well, thank you for doing all that you do. It's actually very inspiring as well as fun. And so that really is a nice segue into our next section. But I also just, again, wanted to say, if anyone who's watching is interested in Haymakers for Hope, please do check out the website. Maybe it would be super fun to go and see this event in October. I'm very intrigued myself, I'll say.
The next event in Boston is actually in May, on May
Ooh,
11th.
in May.
At the MGM, at the MGM Music Hall in Fenway.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, it's on the website?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that might be a group event for this crew and anyone watching. Awesome. And thank you again for sharing your story with us and this really fun and inspiring conversation. Thank you. All right. So we are moving forward with Be Inspired. I'm going to share my screen if I can find my little finger. There we go. Be Inspired, Exercise for a Cause. And Christian, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. So that was awesome, Julie. Thank you. That was really talk about motivating as well as fun. It's a great story and such a great cause. And so CJ, I actually met through, you touched upon marathon training. This is how we met. This is my first time running the Boston Marathon, and I actually met CJ because he is one of the other marathon runners on my team for MGH. One thing I will say, just to preface the video, and a couple things. The first is that this was pre-recorded, and CJ said it was okay to share this. He is expecting his first child in the next week or so he didn't want it to run into issues with not being able to make this interview. So that's why it's pre-recorded. And the other thing that actually Lynn talked about was that, sometimes it's the couch to 5K or couch to kitchen. And by no means is this, the motivation to get up and just run a marathon out of nowhere. I think everything takes that building up, and you'll hear CJ talk about that. But I think this was a big insight into the why, into the motivation. So without further ado, I think we can play the video.
All right, I'm gonna see if it works. Give the thumbs up if we're okay with audio.
So CJ, thanks so much for joining today. I know I've been extremely excited about this, and also know you have a lot going on. So I appreciate the time today.
No worries.
Just to briefly introduce you to everyone. Obviously, we met as teammates for the Mass General Cancer Center, Mass General Marathon charity team, and we're both running sort of in support of the Pediatric Cancer Center. So, aside from this being a really terrific support, cause of support, I know it also holds a very special meaning for you. So why don't I let you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so like you said, my name is CJ DePrima. So very happy, first of all, to just be a part of the Mass General Pediatric Cancer Marathon team for 2023. It's something that I've wanted to do for such a long time now, and I'm so happy that I finally jumped into it. And it's only a couple months away at this point, so it's really exciting. But so yeah, I think my biggest motivation is just the fact that I was treated for lymphoma in 2013 at Mass General. I was a pediatric case at the time just because I was only 19 years old. I went through 4 months of chemotherapy followed by another month of radiation and went into remission in the summer of 2013. And I owe so much of my life to the amazing people at Mass General and the crazy treatment that they provided. And that's one of the biggest motivators to why I wanted to run the Boston Marathon specifically for Mass General, so I could give back. I mean, it's the absolute least that I could do.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, I actually didn't know a lot of the details behind like your treatment and all of this. So I guess it's 10 years now. Is that right?
10 years, yeah, 10 years from my diagnosis, and almost, the summer will be 10 years from my my remission mark. So it's good to think about. It's not something I think about all the time. I almost just kind of mentally put it to the side. But when I do think about it, it's like I get this overwhelming sense of like gratitude and just gratefulness that I'm here, and like I said, I owe so much of that to Mass General and the treatment that they provided me.
Yeah. I mean, what better way to think about that than by running 26.2 miles, right?
Exactly. I'll be thinking of it. I'll be thinking of it every step of the way, and there'll be a lot of steps. So
sure. So obviously that's a big part of the reason I wanted to interview you. But I know when I read your fundraising profile, I was amazed and inspired at your story. Is this your first marathon? The first marathon you're running?
It is, yeah, first marathon. I've done a half marathon like officially once. I've run another like 13 here and there. And then over this past weekend, I actually just ran my first 16-mile road race over in Derry, New Hampshire. And it was like one of the hill. It's a race that's like synonymous with hills. And it was ridiculous. The elevation gain was like almost 1,400 feet. So it was easily the hardest race I've ever done. There was not even just the mileage, like the 16 was okay. If it was like, elevation gain of maybe 400 feet or something, it wouldn't have been all that bad. But yeah, it was brutal. It really tested, I guess my grit, so to speak. And just after running that, I'm like, I know I got another 10 to tack on with the actual marathon, but I'm more confident that I can do it after running such a grueling race, So.
Yeah, it's one step at a time, but
yeah, exactly.
So can you tell me a little bit about why it is you exercise and obviously you touched upon, the Mass General being sort of your motivation behind running for them, but any particular reason for running a marathon and why you exercise?
Yeah, so I guess to answer the first part of it, I've always been very active. Like in high school, I ran track at both indoor, outdoor, and then played football. So I've always been doing some sort of activity or sport throughout like my whole life. And then, after going through cancer treatment in 2013, I was just out of high school at the time. And so I got into like more so distance running. When I was doing track in high school, I was all short distance. It was nothing more than like maybe the 400 meter. It was more like 100, 200 meters. So I never really thought I'd be the type of person to run long distance. But when you come out of school, there's not like anything competitive going on for like short distance running. It's all like long distance 5Ks, that kind of a thing. And I think a big motivation for me to like get into like the marathon space and the distance running was that in 2013, right before I went into remission, I actually had somebody at Mass General run for me. Her name was Bonnie Monahan, and she was on the Mass General Pediatric team. She was a part of the patient partner program. So she partnered with me, and I got to meet her like at mile 20 over at the chief of oncology's house, like in Newton. And I saw her run by, and I got to run a little bit of the course with her, which was amazing. And so that really propelled me into like wanting to not only run distance, but like run the marathon one day, because I wanted to be an inspiration for somebody else like he was for me at the time. I mean, still continues to be to this very day. So
Wow, that's awesome.
thanks, man.
That's really awesome. So, the probably the last question I have, just talking about marathons and everything, obviously along your journey, again, you've touched upon motivations, inspirations. What are some challenges you've come across so far? Would you say, it doesn't have to be running for a marathon, but just in terms of exercising? Obviously, there's many days we don't want to do it, days that you have these little nagging injuries, and sometimes you have to listen to your body. But what are maybe some challenges versus some pros that you found throughout training, and how do you sort of go past those challenges? How do you encounter those and navigate them?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as like the challenges go. You wake up one day, and I mean, I'm lucky to where I do like running. A lot of people think I'm a little like psychotic for saying that, but it's really true. Like, I'm not so much more like a treadmill person. I get very like bored of like the monotony of it. But like when I'm outside running like different, trails that I'll map out on my phone, like throughout town and everything, like I love that. I love just being in the open and, breathing the fresh air, regardless of the fact that it's like 20 degrees or so at this very moment. But anyway, I think one of the biggest challenges is to consistently find the motivation, because like I said, generally for me, it's there. But like if I'm waking up at like, 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and it is like 20, 30 degrees outside, I'm like, oh, and it's so warm in the house. I'm like, how do I get outside and like go and run in this cold weather for like 12 miles or so? So that's tough on those days. It's like, oh, but having that milestone ahead of me setting that milestone of the marathon is kind of what propels me. When I set a goal for myself, and give myself like a timeline to meet that goal, obviously it's April 17th for the marathon. Like, I find it some sort of way to see it through, and I just use that as motivation. I don't really give myself a minute to really think about not doing it either. Like, I just jump into it, because I know too, at the end of the day, at the end of the workout, I'm going to feel better for it too. And also just knowing that, any type of exercise is just good for the body. I just want to stay healthy, especially with what I went through. I've read like countless times that exercising, specifically doing like cardio-based exercise, could decrease risk of cancer. And obviously that's something I never want to have to go through again. And if I can mitigate that risk as much as possible, I'd love to do so.
Sure. Awesome. Well, this has been great, CJ. Again, I really appreciate your time today. And I know we haven't had any training runs together yet, but hopefully in the near future. And we'll see you out there on April 17th. So let's see, just a few months away, not even.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, Christian. I appreciate the interview.
All right, CJ. Take care. All right.
All right, man. You too.
Bye.
Wow.
So obviously, yeah, CJ, he was awesome to talk to. That was really my first time chatting with him. He has such a great story. And I think my big takeaway from that is that, obviously his motivation, his why is very clear. It's very big. We can all see that right in front of him. And it's a great inspiration. But I think the big takeaway for me was that anyone can sort of find that why and find that motivation. It doesn't need to be this big overarching, greater sort of story. We can all have our little whys as to, this is why I want to get out there and run a mile or walk a mile, or even, go in my living room and do some squats or something. I think just having that small motivation is a big part of getting out and actually doing it. So that was really my big takeaway from talking with him. But he was great.
He is certainly inspiring. And I think his story about how he was inspired by the person who ran for him as a 13-year-old that blew my mind. Like, that's really cool. So he will be an inspiration to somebody else. It already is, and now through the webinar as well. So thank you so much for asking him and having him share his story. And good luck to you, Christian, as well, as you are embarking on your training That's so exciting. We'll be rooting for you.
Thank
Yeah, so I just want to put this sort of last words up there for us. I think that the folks that were interviewed today, and all of you watching, these words hopefully will ring true. You're braver than you believe, you're stronger than you seem, and you're smarter than you think, and twice as beautiful as you'd ever imagined. I feel like we should all have that on our mirror every morning to read and say to ourselves, right? So in closing, of course, please do talk to your care providers about your physical activity, and talk to them if there are any restrictions to exercise, so that you can get started in a safe and an appropriate way. You can certainly ask them, and we encourage you to ask your providers for a referral to the lifestyle medicine program for an individual consultation to take a deeper dive into your goals and your wellness vision, as well as any resources and referrals that we can make to support you in your wellness vision. We also have virtual group visits where we talk about all the pillars of lifestyle medicine, and actually exercise, of course, is a big one. And this is a nice opportunity to be in a community with other folks who've been through cancer treatment, and share your experiences with them and get inspired by each other. And this is just a little piece of advice, not to put off for tomorrow what you can do today. So again, take those small steps, they count, even with sweet potatoes. So I'm going to stop share, and we can certainly address the Q&A.
That was so great, all of you. So inspiring. Thank you. But there are some questions in the chat box. Allie, do you want to ask the first question?
Yeah, sure. Just for anyone watching, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. Our first question is, what are the top 3 exercises for preventing osteopenia and osteoporosis?
Lynn, I would love it if you would address this one.
Yeah, I could talk about 3 categories of exercise more than 3 like isolated specific exercises. So one is impact. So think like standing and walking. The other is strengthening. When very basically when muscle pulls on bone, that tension can stimulate bone building. And there's actually more and more research that stretching can do the same. So it doesn't all have to be like walking and jogging and all high intensity. So I even have patients that do like aqua aerobics, and that like resistance of the pull in the water, that can stimulate bone building as well, or gentle progressive yoga. Yeah, there's different forms of exercise. It's nice to have a variety, but there's not necessarily like 3 specific exercises that I would recommend.
Oh, Loren,
May I ask a follow-up question to that, Lynn? Does it matter for osteopenia, osteoporosis, and that bone building that they do both upper and lower body?
Yes. For risk reduction, especially if you were to trip and fall and had that arm outstretched, women especially tend to not do enough for their upper body. So yes, ideally, it's a well-rounded strengthening program, like going back to those recommendations we talked about, of 6 to 8 resistance exercises that hit all major muscle groups of upper and lower body. So it could be weight bearing through the upper body. It could be band-based exercises. It could be gentle progressive weightlifting with free weights or machines. Again, there's not really evidence that like there's one particular exercise, more like categories of exercise.
Thank you.
Loren, I had a question for you, actually. I mean, we've covered so many really interesting approaches to exercise, and I know one of your passions is yoga. Do you want to speak briefly about the benefits of yoga and how individuals can perhaps learn more about ways to try yoga if interested?
Of course, I could do a whole webinar on yoga, but I think, again, it's, certainly encompasses many of the aspects of sort of skeletal health that Lynn has touched on: stretching, weight bearing, balance, strengthening. It really is, I think, a very well-rounded exercise. There are many different kinds of yoga that range from very restorative and a lot of lying down and resting, which has its own benefits. Taking time to be calm and connected with your breath is highly beneficial for stress management and sleep and a whole host of things. But of course, that the yoga types of classes can vary all the way up to acrobatic yoga and yoga with animals, goat yoga. I mean, there's so many kinds of yoga. So I think finding a class, if you're new to it, that is a beginner based beginner type class, a slow flow, those kinds of classes tend to really focus in on the fundamentals and not ask you to do anything crazy. It's a good idea to talk to the teacher ahead of time and just say, hey, listen, I'm new to this. And they can, be a little more mindful and offer modifications, but there's just so many nice, lovely local studios out there who I think were really hard hit by the pandemic and are really hoping to see folks back in the studio. If that's not feeling good to you, then certainly lots of resources online to do yoga at home in the privacy of your living room or bedroom. All you need is a mat. That's it. And we also have some yoga video on our website, which I made for our lifestyle medicine program. So that's also a nice place to start if you'd like to just play with some yoga postures and learn how to do that breath and body connection. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about yoga anytime.
Maybe we'll have to do that, but wow. Well, this has been amazing. I mean, really inspiring. I know Allie feels the same way. And Julie, we're so grateful that you were able to join us too, and really fabulous to learn about boxing and your incredible organization. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I know many of us will be looking that up after this webinar. I just want to let everyone know this is being recorded, so we will share it. So if you want to go back and watch, especially checking out those exercises that Lynn shared with us, this will be a great resource for so many. And in 3 weeks, March 1st will be our next webinar, and then we'll focus on another key pillar of lifestyle medicine, which is nutrition. Carol Sullivan and Ashley Draviam, our amazing oncology-focused nutritionists, are going to tell us how to stock a cancer-fighting pantry. So I really look forward to learning from them. But I just want to thank all of our speakers. You've done such an incredible job. This was such an informative webinar. So thank you so much. And thank you to all of our participants too.
Yes, thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. Thank you.
For having me.